Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to reflect on the many definitions. I think we went through 14 definitions of leadership, and I hope you had a chance to consider jotting down your own definition of leadership, or even consider making a leadership mission statement, what the ideal state would look like, and something maybe you can shoot for down the road. So this session, we're going to talk about the difference between leadership and management and some of the nuances and similarities, and then also talk about the characteristics of a successful leader. So before we get to that, I did want to summarize what we talked about in the last session. There were some common themes that we discovered. I went back and summarized those 14 definitions and kind of looked at a who, what, and how regarding leadership. If you look at the who, depending on the definition, obviously you're looking at a leader, a follower. Some people call them employees, subordinates, cast members, if you will. And then you kind of move towards in some of the definitions, you may address the collective, the group, the team, the organization, the institution. But there definitely is a relationship between leader, follower, and then the subsequent teams that may be involved in the leadership activity or process, if you will. Then you look at the what. And we'll talk about some of these when we go through different leadership theories. These were what were cited in these particular definitions we looked at. Of course, there's many more definitions. But vision, values, activities, usually some shared goals, objectives. What are you trying to achieve as the organization, as the leader and follower? Again, we talked about leadership being a process, but then also being behavior, some level of commitment, facilitating. If you go back and look at the old functions of management, we'll do that today a little bit, you'll see how those are not necessarily included here in the what, but there is some overlap that we'll talk to. And then, of course, influence, which was addressed in at least half of those definitions I think we looked at. So the how gets a little tricky because sometimes you can get into the management activities here, and then some of these hows can even be considered what's in some cases. So it's not necessarily clean, I understand that. How as a leader can you accomplish some of these what's, some of these objectives, some of these goals, etc. If you can inspire your team, if you can influence them and inspire them, that will make a big impact. Effort could be a number of different things. For instance, how are you going to accomplish casting a vision? Could be a document, it could be meetings or communication. A symbiotic was mentioned, reciprocal, kind of a win-win for both the giver, receiver, the leader, and the follower. If the follower sees some benefit, some reward, they will tend to buy in and be more productive, as we'll find out later. Specific accomplishments, achieving, going after goals, setting goals, holding yourself accountable, seeing results, those type of things, measuring results. The culture, one of the definitions used the word the environment. So within the organization, how are you going to do this? You can impact the culture. Having a purpose. So motivate, enable. Some of these may be bleeding over into the what's again, but how will you achieve the vision? By motivating. How will you achieve your shared goals and objectives? By enabling the team, giving them the tools and resources necessary. So I think it's good to look back and spend a little time on closing out that subject of leadership definitions. So here's my definition of leadership through the many years and pains and travails and successes. I defined it as a process and behavior, process and actions. None of the other definitions had done that, but I do see it as both, quite frankly. And so I captured it that way. And then the leader does have a relationship with a follower, yes, but it could be a peer. It could be a group. Could be someone in a different function or a different ministry. So I just said with an individual. And then I used some of those keywords we just talked about: influence, inspiration, motivation, developing, training, learning, growing the talent, and then serving. We'll spend a lot of time on servant leadership, so I included that. And again, I included leadership to include a broader subset of folks other than just followers. I said followers and peers. You could say teammates. And what are we trying to achieve? I said a common vision, goals, and to deliver mutually beneficial results. I love the symbiotic, reciprocal approach that we talked about. And so again, the benefits can be for an organization, a leader, or a follower. So I included all three of those. So just if you try to kind of bucketize what are the most important things as a leader, and we'll talk about some of these characteristics and relationships and things like that as we go forward. But if you look at those definitions and the 100+ books that I've read in the journal, articles, and research, I believe that motivation and inspiration and influence can be very, very key and critical in being a successful leader. And you can do that through some innate traits, through the hero mentality or how you were born or your genes. But I also believe the behaviors and skills which one can develop are also key. So that's one area. The second, I believe, is relationships and values. And again, we just talked about that. So it can be leader, follower, team members or group, but it also can be stakeholders. It can be shareholders if you're a publicly traded company. And so there are internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. You may have the government as a stakeholder, or the community as a stakeholder, or families. A lot of different areas to look at in those relationships. And then what are your values as a leader too? We'll talk quite a bit about that. The third one that the research shows time and time again is having shared vision and goals leads to successful and effective leadership. So not just a leader casting that one-way vision, but having buy-in, having skin in the game, developing a strategy together with the team, with the followers, with the stakeholders, sharing knowledge that one leader, that one individual may not have. So again, this is very directional. If you can share that vision and people understand that this is their guide, this is their roadmap to the future, they know how to measure success, that this is very impactful. And then the fourth one that we talked about was this symbiotic relationship, again, mutually beneficial, that both leader and follower get benefits out of the relationship, that there's passion and drive from both leader and follower, that there's action from both leader and follower, and that there's accountability, that the follower is not just held accountable, or the team is not just held accountable, but the most powerful leaders and most effective leaders have others hold them accountable. It may be their boss, it may be a team, it may be shareholders, but having your own team and your followers hold you accountable, doing a 360 or having some candid discussions with your team and followers is very, very impactful. So that's my definition, and I stand by it.